Hi, everybody. This is the baseball fight, the amazing, spectacular, terrific, the great one, the people's champion. Your host, welcome back to the baseball hut. And hope you like this video and hit that subscribe button. So I've been away the last couple of days, been working a lot, so I haven't had a chance to watch the games, which is probably a good thing. Oh my goodness. So we had opening day. Mets lost 3-1. Had one hit in the game, and obviously today they played. And the Brewers, they lost 7-6. I know the big story has been Rhys Hoskins. Hoskins, it doesn't matter. He's mud. But that's besides the point. I know that's the big takeaway of the last 2 days for a lot of people. But really, the crux of the issue, as I can see, just the first two games, I will not have any kind of judgment on this team for myself. And you shouldn't either until we get to 40 games. That's always the barometer. Once we get to 40 games, that's a pretty good barometer where we are. That's about a quarter of the season. And the next barometer is Memorial Day and then the 4th of July. But a couple of things. The Brewers, they are everything that we want from the Mets. Because to be honest with you, that is the team that David Stearns built, top to bottom. He placed all these people in charge of all these decisions, as well as a lot of the players. The guy that closed the game out on Friday, he developed them. Jackson Chirinos, who was this big prospect, who's one of now the youngest players to ever start on opening day, he signed him. In the last 10 games, the Mets are 1-9 against the Brewers. I would not be surprised if they got swept, because when the Mets have played the Brewers the last 2 years, since 2022, they've looked like this. And that should be something to keep an eye on. Now, a couple of things, and really the biggest issue in this game, in these two games, has been the starting pitching. I had listened to the first inning on Friday when Quintana was struggling to find his way through the inning. I think he threw close to 20 pitches. It is impossible to be able to win games when you're throwing that many pitches in an inning, and particularly the first inning. And obviously caught up with him. He was not able to get through 5 innings. And the Mets obviously only had one hit in the game. That is a side note, because they're not a complete offense, obviously, with Martinez not here yet to provide the kind of thump in the middle of this lineup. That's a separate issue for a separate day. And then on Saturday, Luis Severino started his first game for the Mets. And I would mention, he did not pitch well at all last year. But as an aside, just so you understand, that's an aside. He went 5 innings today, gave up 12 hits, which was a career high for him. He never did that with the Yankees. He gave up 6 runs. You cannot win. And he gave up 3 runs in the first inning. What was the biggest issue last year for this ball club when we had the great Verlander and Scherzer and a lot of these other guys? They weren't able to be unscathed in the first inning and put the Mets behind the 8 ball before they even got up at the plate or come up a second time in the game. It was giving up multiple runs, not even just 1 run, but multiple runs in the first inning. The Mets are not going to be able to win, and we saw this last year. Unless they get the pitching, these guys got to go 5 innings plus, and they cannot give up the kind of runs that we have seen over really the first 2 games of this season. Now, this is just to talk about it. There's no panic here, at least not on my part. I know there's a lot of people panicked online, but they don't. They're crazy. They just want attention. I know Spaz Licata was bugging out on Twitter today, saying that the Mets need to trade have to trade the core of this team and this and that. This is after 10 innings of baseball. Oh, he's a little cuckoo, a little, stunat. If you're Italian, you know what he is. He's a little stunat. He's a little bit of a dutra. You know what that means if you're Italian. But the thing is that we have a situation where we have to watch this club over the next 40 games and see where we're at. Now, Pete Alonso got another home run today in the 9th inning. They had some fight in this game. So they were able to cut the game down to where they finished 7-6. However, when your starter gives up 6 runs, it puts you up against the wall, and it's very difficult to win that way. It really is very, very difficult to win like that. Now we're going to have to see now the next couple of weeks where this team is at. Now they're going to win. I mean, they're going to play well. I have no doubt. But I would mention that my concern is over the course of this, really the first 6 weeks of the season, because this is a tough schedule. And like I said, the Mets are 1-9 the last 10 games against the Brewers, and the Brewers are supposedly not as good as they had been. They look pretty damn good from what I saw, in the little clips I saw, and what I read. And that is a team, of course, that David Stearns put together and built. So we do have good stuff coming down the line. But I'm very concerned about the first month. The Mets going to be playing the Braves in a couple of weeks. And they just beat the hell out of the Phillies, boy. Those first 2 games, Zach Wheeler had nothing on Friday. Absolutely nothing. He must have been getting behind the count. He must have been leaving balls up. And then this game on Saturday, they beat the hell out of the Phillies rotation. They beat the hell out of Aaron Nola. And Aaron Nola's a good pitcher. So, the Braves beat the hell out of them the last 2 days. Now, what we're going to see now is where this pitching is over the next few weeks, obviously. To me, that's my biggest concern, because this was not a concern going into last season, but then it became a concern, and we want to be able to see this team, pitch better, obviously. Now, this thing on Hoskins, whatever the fuck his name is, Hoskins, he's a punk. He's a total punk, and he's, there are a lot of teams that have players, and there's a lot of teams that take advantage of this ball club. I've talked about this a lot over the last few years, and in particular last year. There's a real lack of toughness within the Mets organization, top to bottom. I think that the former general manager of this club, Billy Epler, recognized that to a certain degree. I think that's why he brought in Tommy Pham here last year. He tried to get Tommy Pham before the trade deadline in 2022. I think that's why he was able to make the deal for trade Verlander for Drew Gilbert. There is a real lack of toughness in this organization, a real lack of meanness in this organization. And again, like I've said, and I hate to go back to it, it all goes back to the Wilpons and Nelson Doubleday and Frank Casher. Because after the Mets won the World Series in '86, they tried their damnedest to get rid of everybody that was any kind of edgy player. And I think that has permeated through this organization for the last 35 years. That has to change. You have to bring in guys. And here's the thing about the players now. And I know the Mets organization watches my videos, social media. You never know who's going to watch. I will say this directly to the players that are playing for the Mets. Don't be afraid to mix it up. Don't be afraid to stand up for yourselves. The fans are behind you 100%. We're all behind you. The last thing you need to do is screw up like you screwed up today. Because that slide on Friday, from my view, it wasn't late, it wasn't dirty, but it was sending a message. And the message is, I'm going to take advantage of you at every chance I get. And that's what we've seen teams do for the last 35 years. I can give you plenty of different examples of the last 25 years of situations where the Mets were taken advantage of, and it cost them dearly down the line. I'm going to talk about this in a future live stream, but I'm going to sort of go through it just a little bit here. In 2000, I hate to go back so far, but this is a very important thing because this has to change. And I would hope that David Stearns recognizes this and Steve Cohen recognizes this. You have to get tougher. The players have to get tougher. And like I said, these current players, we have your back as fans. So if you get yourselves thrown out, we are your 10th man on the field. Okay? This is not a situation where, you guys are on an island. Okay? If you are tough and you fight back, we have your back. But let's go back a little bit. 2000. We know that Mike Piazza killed Roger Clemens. Everybody knows that Clemens threw at Piazza. What did the Mets do? Nothing. Later on in the season, Mets played the Yankees in the World Series in Game 2. Again, everybody knows that Clemens, no matter what his bullshit story was, he threw that bat at Piazza. And that, because the Mets did nothing after Piazza got beaten at Yankee Stadium, he took advantage of them. In 2009, Dave Wright got beaten at Citi Field by Matt Cain. What was the Mets' reaction? They did nothing. They did absolutely nothing for it. They didn't react. They didn't respond. They didn't go after Matt Cain or one of the other players on the Giants. And that changed the course of David's career. A lot of people feel that way. 2015. The Mets played the Royals in the World Series. And we saw how aggressive the Royals were and all these at-bats the Mets had against them. When the Mets were pitching against the Royals, how aggressive they were. In Game 3, the first pitch to Alcides Escobar went past his head. That's the one game the Mets won in that series. Okay, so this, and of course the Mets lost the series. You cannot, when you get to a certain level as a team, this goes for all the sports, you have to show the other team. I thought about this a lot today, coming home. When you are at a high level, like these players are, these teams are, if you're competing at a high level, you have to show the other team that you are willing to do anything. And the hut means anything to win. If you don't do that, then the team's going to take advantage of you. Just the idea that you're going to respond in kind to a team that takes advantage of you, that's deterrent. Last year, finally, the Mets had that series in June early in Atlanta. And Charlie Morton hit Pete Alonso and the rest. Charlie Morton's only throwing there because he has the ability to go there. He wanted to hit Pete. If Pete didn't get out of the way, oh well, too bad. Like he said, he didn't throw on bullshit. We know he was throwing at him. That's what the teams say now. That's the politically correct thing to say. But Charlie Morton definitely was throwing at Pete. And how did the Mets respond? They did nothing. Pete had a lousy month of June. The Mets had one of the worst months in the history of this ball club. And the whole season went down into the toilet. Okay? And it didn't matter from that point on what the Mets did for the season. So it has this sort of domino effect. When you have a team that's afraid to respond, guys, I know people watch. I know people that know, I know, because I saw it last year, how tough I was on them and how I was very mean about a lot of the stuff I said, but I was right. Don't be afraid. Stand up for yourselves as a team. You do that, and you'll feel better about yourselves, and these teams won't take advantage of it. Hopkins did this because he felt he could take advantage of it, and he did. And he knew if he didn't get hit today, first of all, after that play, the next Brewer should have gotten hit. That's another deterrent. That's a less obvious one. And then to do it 2 hours later for a guy that hadn't been here is very telling. Now, that's just my short answer to a major problem here that we've been seeing for a long time. This is a much larger problem than how things were just for last 2 years. This has been going on for a long time. And unless the Mets change that, it doesn't matter. You could bring in another group of guys. And if it's coming from the top, that we only want nice guys here, that we only want guys that are going to get along and everything else, then it's not going to change. But again, anybody's watching, any of the players are watching, anybody in the clubhouse is watching, don't be afraid. Stand up for yourselves. The fans have your back. I'm there for you. We're there for you. We want you to play well. We want you to win. Okay, don't be afraid to stand up for yourselves. Do it. If you feel like Pete Alonso's getting And look how many times Francisco Lindor has gotten hit in the head, and Pete, because teams feel they can take advantage of us. And I never say us, but that's how it is. And that's the truth. I'm going to call it like I say it. Don't be afraid, guys. Go after them. We have your back. Don't be afraid. So that's just my take on it. Now, like I said, we're going to see where this team is at after 40 games. It's only been 2 games. That's 0-2, but the Phillies are 0-2. And the Braves are 2-0. It's very early in the season. It's not a microcosm of things to come. It's not a microcosm of the last few years. But most important thing is don't be afraid. Show no fear. And you'll be fine. So, thank you for watching this video. And, of course, I'll have more stuff in the future. Keep an eye out for a future live stream. And, of course, thank you for watching. Have a good day and happy Easter.